Welcome to the Career Intelligence Podcast, where we explore how work is changing and how people can navigate their careers in a world shaped by AI, technology, and rapid workplace transformation. I'm your host, Meredith Dinitz, career coach and founder of Your Career Happiness Professional Coaching. And joining me is my co-host and fellow career coach, Kathleen Dohoney, owner of Celtic Career Pros. Today's conversation is all about interviewing, but probably not in the way you might expect. There are plenty of podcasts and articles that cover common interview questions or what to wear. We wanted to take a different approach and talk about the interview situations that tend to create the most anxiety for job seekers. Whether you're a recent graduate, returning to work after raising children, changing careers or industries, interviewing after spending years with the same company, or worried about being perceived as overqualified, each of those situations comes with different questions and different concerns from employers. Throughout this conversation, Kathleen and I share the strategies we use with our own clients to help them tell their story with confidence and address those concerns before they become obstacles. Now let's get started.
I'm really excited about our conversation because I think interview advice is one of those topics where there's plenty of good information out there, but it isn't one size fits all. And I think the advice that helps a recent graduate isn't always the same advice that helps someone who's been with the same company for 20 years or maybe returning to work after raising children or even a gap for other reasons. I'm excited to dive in and talk about some different things. So let's start with you. What are some of the situations you wanted to talk about today?
To kick it off, we're going to talk about early career professionals, whether they're in college looking for an internship to interview for a position or recent grads. When you want to start interviewing, really network, I think that's a big step that's skipped. And the reason this is huge is going to help you do mini interview sessions and preps because this is all new for people who are in school and people who have recently graduated. The other thing that happens is many times when I'm prepping early career, they have no idea what the company does. So that's going to be asked as a question. What do you know about this company? Research, research, research. And there's many ways that you can research. What does the company do? What are their products and services? Who are their customers? Is it B2B, B2C, industrial? Why do they exist? And that's really important for you to know when you are interviewing. Don't skip the step. So you're networking to learn what's out there and how you would fit in the industry. That's getting some industry knowledge for the interview and then researching the company. The other piece to this is many early career go, well, I really don't have a lot of experience, but you do have projects, right? You have class projects that you can talk about to help you get an internship, capstones, assignments, competitions, Skills USA. Did you volunteer? Are you part of student organizations? It's not enough to talk about, I belong to these groups. It's what did you do? How did you contribute? And what did you learn? So what did you learn is a way to bring it forward for when you are interviewing for a marketing role. I learned how to use SEO to gauge engagement on a website. I think another piece to this is connecting your coursework to the role that you're applying for. Don't assume an interviewer knows how you and your education applies to them. For an example, my finance coursework gave me experience analyzing financial statements and forecasting trends. And my internship allowed me to apply those concepts to real business decisions. Remember, every college has different programs, and every course that you take is not going to align with every single other college. So be prepared to explain how what you do applies to them. Another thing is being able to answer, why did you choose this field? What brought you there? Not, I don't know, it was the best thing I could figure out.
That's a good point.
um, anything from solving analytical problems after taking my first cybersecurity course. And then show initiative, how you maybe learned a software independently while attending school. Demonstrate coachability, your willingness to learn, and then highlight other soft skills during the interview process, like reliability, critical thinking, adaptability. And I think the other piece that a lot of young professionals really rely on AI, but don't have it craft and script every single thing that you are going to say. Employers value authenticity and your ability to learn.
I think one of your first points you mentioned about researching and understanding what the company does, but then take it a step further, look at their mission statement, their core values, and be prepared to explain why are you interested in our company, and then be able to tie why it speaks to you, your values, their mission, things like that. So I think taking it that one step further, they can use AI to help put things together, but you want to be able to speak to that for sure. And I love how you said being involved in organizations on campus, there are so many skills you're building there that you can use to prepare.
Yeah, and I think if I just added one more thing to that, when your early career, being involved in the campus, but making sure you tie that into the interview. Now, I joined a group. Well, that's great. Did you actually show up? What did you do? Did you take a leadership position? So that's going to be really impactful when you do interview.
One of the examples I was actually going to share is I work with a lot of people who have stepped away from their careers to raise children, start their family. And one of the biggest questions that they have is, how do I explain the gap on my resume? The good news is most employers aren't looking for that perfect explanation. They just want to understand, why are you returning now, and feel confident that you are ready. So, one of the first things I tell clients is own your career break. If it comes up, you don't have to apologize. Don't over explain it. A simple response: I made the decision to step away from my career to raise my children. And now I'm excited to return to work and apply my skills and experience in this next chapter. That's it. You don't have to go into a whole long explanation. Your career break is part of your story, but it shouldn't become the entire interview. Once you've addressed it, you want to shift the conversation back to the value you bring. Don't dwell. The next thing I encourage people to think about is, why are you returning now? I think sometimes people assume that interviewers are judging their decision to step away, but in most cases, they're really just trying to understand, why is this the right time to come back? They want to know what's changed, why now, and why are you excited about this opportunity? So you want to help them answer those questions. You might say something like, my children are older now. I'm at a point where I can fully commit to the next chapter of my career. I've been intentional about identifying the type of work I want to do. And this role really aligns well with my strengths and experiences. One of the biggest mindset shifts that I try to help clients make is lead with what you bring, not what you've missed. I see so many people
Mm.
returning to work focused on the gap, how long they've been out, whether they're behind or what they may have missed. But your professional experience, it didn't disappear because you took a career break. You continue developing skills during that time. The key is helping employers connect those experiences to the role that you're interviewing for. Parenting, there is no doubt, as we both can attest to, you develop
Mm.
valuable skills, right? Your organizational skills, your prioritization, your communication, adaptability, problem solving, juggling. But I wouldn't try to,
Negotiations.
right? Exactly. I wouldn't suggest trying to convince an employer that parenting is the same as professional experience. Instead, connect those skills to examples that are relevant to the role that you're pursuing. So, let's say you're taking a career break, but before that, you managed marketing campaigns. And while you were home, you led fundraising for your child's PTA and coordinated a team of volunteers. I wouldn't spend the interview talking about the fundraiser itself. I'd say something like, throughout my career, I've enjoyed bringing people together to execute projects, and that's something I continued to do while I was away from the workplace. Now I'm really excited to bring those skills back into a professional setting. I know another concern that employers sometimes have is whether you've stayed current. I don't think that means that you need to completely reinvent yourself, but maybe you consider doing some upskilling. You take a course online, volunteer, maybe you stay active in a professional association or organization, and make sure that you're reconnecting with your network just to keep up with industry trends. I think the point is you want to show your curiosity, initiative, and that you're prepared to step back into today's workplace. One mistake I see is that candidates spend 5, 6 minutes explaining every detail of why they left work, and you don't need to do that. Again, you want to keep it simple: why you stepped away, what you've done to stay engaged, and why you're excited to return. Then you want to bring the conversation back to your qualifications. The interview shouldn't become about defending your career break. It should become about helping the interviewer understand why you're the right person for the role. Maybe you say something like, while I've had a career break, I bring 8 years of marketing experience, strong relationship building skills, and a fresh perspective. And I'm excited to apply those strengths in this role.
So important. And I think it also ties into similarly with gaps if you were out due to health or caring for someone who had long-term illness, even returning to work after a period of layoff where you took a break. So many of the similar things that you talked about are so important. And keep in mind, you don't have to disclose your medical condition or diagnosis. What I really liked what you said is keep the explanation brief. Stop talking. It's okay to be silent and say
Yes.
nothing and let the interviewer fill that gap. We feel like we have to over explain, and we don't. Really keeping it brief. And then what I think is so important is you started with the result, really being able to say, here's what I've done, and this is what I can do for you going forward. Interviews are really assessing your ability to solve their problems.
I think they all fall under a similar umbrella. Less is
Correct.
more, and just give them what they need to know, but show your value.
So then I think you were going to move into something with someone who's been working for a long time at a
Yeah.
company.
Yes. Another situation I do see quite a bit is someone interviewing after spending 10, 15, even 20 years with the same employer. One of the biggest adjustments is realizing that your internal brand doesn't travel with you. Inside your organization, people know your reputation, your work ethic, and the impact you've made. But outside that company, you are starting over. So you have to build credibility through the way you tell your story. Something else I see, it's definitely a mistake that people need to be aware of, is speaking an internal language without realizing it. There are acronyms that are specific to your company or project names, other company specific terminology. And of course, it'll make perfect sense internally, but it's not going to mean anything to that employer or that interviewer unless they've been where you are. One of the biggest things I coach clients on is make sure you're translating your experience into language that anyone can understand. I also think it's important to be prepared for the question behind the question: why did you stay so long? And I don't think that employers necessarily see longevity as negative. I think many people are curious. They want to understand what kept you there, why are you looking now, and how are you going to adapt to a new environment. So you want to make sure you have a thoughtful, authentic answer to those questions. And if you haven't interviewed in 10 or 15 years, remember, it is a skill. Don't expect to be perfect and great immediately. Practice, as Kathleen, you were mentioning, even for early career. Same is true if you haven't interviewed in 10 plus years. You got to dust the cobwebs off, get comfortable telling your story out loud. And one last thing I do want to mention is networking. When you've spent that long of a time period with one company, I found that a lot of my clients, their network is often heavily internal. So that's why I encourage people to intentionally rebuild that external network before you need it. It's really important to constantly have those touch points externally.
The other thing that I'd love to add is somebody that's been with a company for a long time has been tapped on the shoulder. Hey, here's a job for you. You're getting promoted. are completely shocked by the changes of the interview process today. AI, asynchronous videos, screening you. I have to interview how many times? 7, 8 times with 10 different people. I have homework. I have to do a presentation. I might have to do a coding assessment. So that has set a lot of people back because it was never that way before. I interviewed twice and I got my job. I didn't have to do
Yes.
much.
Yes. Or every job I've ever gotten was because of someone I knew.
So that kind of next topic is pivoting industries or pivoting titles. And the first couple of things that you want to think about is employers want to know why you're making the change. The pushback will be, well, you've never worked in our industry. You are in fintech and you want to take what you do and move into healthcare. You know nothing about healthcare or manufacturing. And so you really have to begin to think about, how do I take the skills that I have and be able to translate it to this new industry? Something that you have to think about is, if that's the case, that might mean a lateral move or a sidestep, which a lot of people are not prepared to do to get to where you want to go. If I've been in the tech space for many years and I've decided I want to make a move, sometimes the employer doesn't see that you're a fit because you know nothing about it. So how are you going to show that you're moving forward and not running away from your field, but that you can have something that can be added as a value? That really takes a lot of research. What are their pain points? What is it that I can do to connect with this company that I can help them solve a problem? I may not know manufacturing and widgets, but I know that when I was in healthcare, whatever I was working on, same problem that they're working on. It's just got a different facade. And how do you make these steps? Might mean taking classes so that you can learn more while you are in your current role. Can I volunteer to do a stretch assignment within my organization if I want to make an internal move, but knowing that it might help me externally? Can I gather some mentors, get someone who can help me understand, you work in healthcare. What should I do? How can I get there? Could I have someone sponsor me to challenge and guide me through that process? So that's pivoting within an industry, but then pivoting titles. I think we get very, in this day and age, hung up on a title. A vice president in a large company can be a director or a manager in another company. They do the exact same thing. And I hear a lot of people, I can't take anything if it's not a VP role. Same money, same responsibilities, but they don't like the idea that it's called manager versus a VP. So are you working with the same team size, the same budget? Does it have the same business impact? Who are the customers and the strategic responsibilities? Keep that in mind and get off the title, because some companies make up titles and it's not the exact apples to apples. I don't know if you had any thoughts about that.
I actually have two things. So when you were talking about pivoting into a different industry, I know you said mentors. The thing I would add to that, informational conversations. Can you find people in companies that you'd be really excited about in a similar role? Reach out to them and see if they'd be willing to have a conversation with you so you can pick their brain. What advice would they give you? What challenges are they seeing? What tools are they using? At the end of that conversation, you ask who else they can introduce you to. The other thing I want to say about titles, when I was a recruiter, so many of my candidates were stuck on being afraid to take a step back of a title. Like you said, so many companies make up a title, change a title. It doesn't always translate. Tell your story, connect the dots.
Oh, 100%. And so they're really sabotaging themselves by not moving forward, because I can't unless it has this higher level, which at the end of the day, what are you doing that you really enjoy? You want to make sure that when you are interviewing, that you are connecting the stories that make sense for the new role and showing them how you can move into this exact same position. The other thing that I think a lot of times people forget is even if I take a step back just a bit, will this help me propel to move forward? Careers are
Mhm.
not linear. We've talked about this before. It's all
Yep.
zigzag and it's all over the place. And I think people who are okay with taking a little bit of a step back end up having the most fruitful careers.
The last topic I wanted to touch on is something I hear from a lot of experienced professionals, and that's being perceived as overqualified. Maybe you're intentionally looking to take a step back. Maybe you're prioritizing work life balance, you're changing industries, or you're just excited about a particular company. Whatever the reason, when you're perceived as being overqualified, it can become a hurdle if you don't address the concerns that often come with it. So I like to encourage people to put themselves in the hiring manager's shoes just for a minute. They're probably wondering, will this person get bored? Are they taking the job simply because they need one right now? Will they leave as soon as something better comes along? Will they be happy reporting to someone with less experience? And can we afford them? Those are legitimate concerns, not necessarily personal judgments. And if you sense those concerns are there, or if the opportunity naturally comes up, you want to address them directly. I realize I have more experience on what you're looking for, but I'd love to share why this opportunity generally excites me. Something like that really opens the conversation and it gives you the chance to explain why this role makes sense for you. Hiring managers need to understand why this role fits what you're looking for at this stage of your career. I don't think you need to minimize your experience to try to fit the role. Your experience is an asset. Instead, explain how it allows you to contribute quickly, bring up broader perspective, and add value from day one. I think if longevity may be a concern, and that's fair, don't be afraid to address it though directly. Help the interviewer understand that this isn't just a stop along the way, that it's an opportunity you're genuinely excited about. And clearly, compensation, if that comes up, because that's fair, you just want to be prepared to explain that you've researched the market, you understand the salary range, and you're comfortable with it because this opportunity really aligns with what you're looking for.
So overqualified, I almost jump to also ageism,
Yes.
people who are feeling overqualified, quote, too old. And I think why people feel that way is you're not going to stay. And my thought is, well, neither do a lot of 30 somethings and 40 somethings. They don't stay either. So
Hmm.
that should not even be on the table. It's more like, well, they're not willing to learn technology. So show them that you are technology forward, that you can be a great mentor, and that you're open to learning. And I think that positions you as someone that can be adding value versus being too stuck in the past.
I think the clearer that you can connect the dots for the interviewer, the easier it is for them to picture you succeeding in the role. They just need to understand your story and why it makes sense. Any other common themes you're seeing?
Yeah, I think we get in the trap of feeling like we're being interrogated during interviews. It's okay to ask questions
Mhm.
throughout to learn a little bit more about the role. Like, what's the biggest priority right now for this team? That opens up a conversation for you to say, oh, well, I actually worked on something very similar. So asking a couple of questions is really key.
When people feel like they're interrogation, like judge and jury, I always like to tell people, look, I know with the market right now and just interviewing in general, it's overwhelming, it can be exhausting, but it really is a two-way street. You are interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you. You want to make sure that this is a place you can see yourself with people that you could be around and be happy. And I know that there's a lot of pressure just to find something, but don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, that's so important because I think people are so anxiety ridden, like, oh, yay, I got an interview. I want to make this work and miss all the red flags that you might have picked up at another point.
I feel like we could keep going. I'm hoping that everyone listening has one or two ideas they can take into their next interview. This has been such a great conversation.
As we wrap up today's episode, one theme really stood out. Every interviewer is trying to understand your story. Whether you're a recent graduate, returning to work after raising children, changing careers, interviewing after years with the same company, or concerned about being overqualified, your goal isn't to have the perfect answer. It's to help the interviewer understand why this opportunity makes sense for you and the value you bring to the role. So before your next interview, ask yourself, can I clearly explain my career story? Can I connect the dots between my experience and what this employer needs? Am I making it easy for the interviewer to picture me in this role? If today's conversation resonated with you, this is exactly the kind of work Kathleen and I do with our clients every day. I work primarily with mid-career professionals navigating career transitions, preparing for interviews, pursuing leadership opportunities, or simply gaining clarity about what's next. Kathleen helps professionals at every career stage build confidence, strengthen their interview skills, and navigate career transitions. You can learn more about working with me at yourcareerhappinesspc.com or connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll also find Kathleen's information along with all of our contact details in the show notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please follow the Career Intelligence Podcast, leave a review, and share it with someone preparing for interviews or navigating a career transition. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Until then, stay curious, keep learning, and keep building your career intelligence.
Just